So at the time of this recording, and I know this is going to come out much later, unfortunately, just because of how I'm making these shows. At the time of this recording, I'm recording this on a Tuesday, the Mavericks and Clippers series ended a couple of days ago, and I've been spending a lot of my time thinking about whether or not, when it came to the storybook ending of this series, was it a story about how the Mavericks choked the series away, or was it a story on how the Clippers came back to win the series? Because my initial take on the series was, okay, the Clippers maybe, in a crazy world, needed to go down by 2 games, be pushed into, the locker by the bully, even though the Mavericks defense, I wouldn't exactly call that bullying. Maybe the Clippers needed to be pushed into that locker. They needed to have their fight or flight engaged. They needed to have something to kick their motor into gear so they could able to win some games, play like the Clippers should be playing on paper, and have success in the playoffs. And I think there's a lot of truth in that statement. I will back myself up on that, but I also feel like there's a lot of truth in the statement that the Mavericks choked away this series. And I'm very on the fence about that, but if you forced me over one side of the fence at this point, I think I would probably say that the Mavericks choked this series away more than anything. And I think the reason that I think that is I take a look at Game 6 and say, Game 6 is absolutely a game that the Mavericks should have won. Luka Doncic gave you a great start early on. That was kind of his thing throughout the series. He would explode for anywhere from 20 to 30 points in the first half and then just kind of run out of gas by the third and fourth quarter because he had no help. Game 6, apart from, games 1 and 2 when the Mavericks were just shooting the lights out from under the Clippers, apart from games 1 and 2, game 6 is the game that I look to in which you could say, okay, Luka's actually getting some help in this game. Game 5 was a situation in which Luka dropped 42 points, but more than anything else, they took advantage of a game in which the Clippers were not shooting the ball effectively. I think Kawhi went 7 from 19 from that game. Paul George didn't shoot the ball much better either. So Game 5, the Game 5 win against the Clippers was a situation in which Luka exploded for 40-plus points, and the Clippers just had a bad shooting night. Game 6 was a game in which it was a closer game. I almost said the Lakers. The Clippers are shooting the ball better. Luka's doing his thing, but Luka actually had help in that game. Hardaway Jr. was making shots. Brunson was making a couple of shots. Boban Marjanovic was being a presence in the paint there. And you felt like, okay, Luka's actually getting enough help for them to win the series. But they ended up losing that game. And then you saw Game 7, everybody was just out of gas and Luka just couldn't do anymore. And now it's a conversation about Luka does not have enough help in Dallas. They need to get him some more superstars. And the big question, really, where is Kristaps Porzingis? Everybody's hyper-focusing on Porzingis as to why the Mavericks lost the series, because Luka was amazing. He was incredible to watch, but Kristaps is supposed to be that second star in the team, and, you know why they call him the unicorn. It's because he doesn't exist. He did not exist in that series. He was nowhere to be found. But the fault is not on Kristaps Porzingis. It's actually on Rick Carlisle, I think, more than anything else, because if you listen to the post-game press conferences, Rick Carlisle, who's the head coach of the Mavericks, he's been a head coach of the Mavericks for a long time, one of the longest tenured coaches in the NBA, which kind of strikes me as weird because it was a rookie mistake that he ended up making. It was a lack of adjustments, really, that ended up, helping the Mavericks lose this series. Rick Carlisle essentially said, we're using, Porzingis in a way. We're using Porzingis in a way in which, he's going to stretch the floor. We want him to shoot threes. We want him to basically be a floor stretcher for us. And although that is something that Kristaps Porzingis can do, it's not like he doesn't have a jump shot, because he does. Spreading the floor and shooting jumpers was one of the things that was utilized very well in Kristaps Porzingis' time in New York. But you don't want to delegate Kristaps Porzingis to that because he's not consistent enough from there. And it's mind-blowing to me that as Rick Carlisle as a coach, you see Luka Doncic moving heaven and earth, and then you see Kristaps kind of just being adjacent on the side and not really contributing. Look, Kristaps is supposed to be that number 2 star in that team. He's supposed to be giving Luka help, and you're physically preventing him from doing what is best for Kristaps Porzingis in order to help Luka Doncic. It makes no sense to me. Kristaps is a great, low post player. He's got a couple of really good post moves. And sure, he's great in the pick and pop as well. But why would you stifle a player's ability like that? Why would you do that? if the argument is all about, okay, let's go and help Luka win some basketball games, why are you physically, preventing or restraining Porzingis from playing his type of basketball game and just delegating him to the corner three ball or delegating him to the pick and pop on a 3-point line? For me, it's not that Porzingis played bad, it's that he was put into bad positions by his coaching. Rick Carlisle absolutely should have utilized Kristaps Porzingis in a better way, and I know Luka's the star of the show, he's the ball handler, and Kristaps is no longer the number one guy on the team like he was in New York, but that should not prevent you from allowing Porzingis to play his game, because if you allow Porzingis to play his game and give him enough touches in a manner in which you know he can be effective, that is only going to help Luka Doncic, and that is only going to help your basketball team win games. And the fact that Rick Carlisle said, no, we're going to use him in a basically exclusively pick and pop scenario, we're going to play him at the 4, we're going to use him as a floor spacer. I understand that the Mavericks don't have that many three-point shooters, that many efficient three-point shooters, but that's still not an excuse enough for you to just kind of bottleneck Porzingis like that. It's not Porzingis' fault that he played so horribly and just, shot, a bunch of jump shots. Sure, could he have shot the ball better? Absolutely. Nobody's debating that he could have shot the ball better. But as a coach in Rick Carlisle, especially somebody who's as experienced as Rick Carlisle is, it blows my mind that they just kind of kept Porzingis away from the action like that, didn't give him enough touches, didn't give him the opportunity to get into the game. And sure, even though Kristaps wasn't complaining about his position, I can point to that as the main reason why the Mavericks weren't able to close out the Clippers. Apart from the other reason that the Mavericks just did not play good defense. They played basically no good defense for the rest of the series. It just it makes no sense to me. That's the one thing that you can point to and say, hey, if Kristaps Porzingis was let off his leash a little bit and gave Luka some help, you gave Kristaps some touches, that might have changed the fate of that series. And I'm not saying, that's a hypothetical, that's a what if, because at the end of the day, and people will still point to this, Kristaps still needs to make jump shots. But I don't understand how you have a number 2 guy and you kind of just relegate him to the side. It appears to be kind of a common trend now among big men in the NBA that they're kind of delegated. If they can shoot the basketball from 3, they're kind of pushed out that way to space the floor, because spacing the floor and shooting 3-pointers is so important in today's game. There's examples of this all over the NBA. You talk about LaMarcus Aldridge, who used to be a low post player, mid-range jump shooter. He was further pushed out to the 3-point line. He was not as successful later on in his career. Joel Embiid, every now and again, he gets kind of pushed out to the 3-point line when really he's just a dominant low post threat. He's pushed out towards the 3-point line. His efficiency and his effectiveness goes down the 10 completely. There's a lot of possibilities, and I surely just cannot, list them all. But when you force kind of big players, big men that can shoot, to delegate them to only shoot, you're just minimizing their effectiveness. And I think that's where that's where not only where the Clippers won the series, that's where the Mavericks lost the series. And it's not it's not because Kristaps Porzingis was an ineffective player or that he just wasn't playing well. He just was not being utilized well by his coach, and the adjustments should have been made about game 4 or game 5 for Rick Carlisle, saying, okay, Luka is carrying this team. We need to give Luka some help. Kristaps, I want you off the 3-point line. We're going to change up the lineup. I want you off the point line. We're going to give you some more touches because Luka is getting gassed by the 3rd and 4th quarter. If I'm the head coach, I would have noticed that and made the change immediately. And to say that Rick Carlisle is one of the most experienced coaches in the NBA, and he's utilizing his second biggest star in the team like that. Look, this series loss for the Mavericks, it's on Rick Carlisle. It's not on Kristaps Porzingis, although I think it is funny and kind of amusing that now Kristaps Porzingis is the new pandemic P, or the playoff P, or whatever they call it. Amusing, but kind of inaccurate, because this series loss, I think it's on Rick Carlisle more than anything else. Hey folks, thank you so much for listening to this segment from the Hard-Headed Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed this segment, make sure that you drop a like on the video and a comment. It helps me out a bunch. And if you're interested in watching more segments like this from the show after the show has been completed, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video. My name is Nick Ryan, and I will see you all again very soon.